production, I believe there's 1,800 of these were produced. Don't quote me on that number, but I'm just throwing it out there. I think that sounds right. There were 1,800 of these produced all over Russia, and they are now on alert. And what I was showing you a moment ago, this is the Satan II. This is their new missile system, and they are ready to deploy at any time. These missiles as well as these missiles. And so what has transpired is it has called for the folks in NATO to call for an emergency meeting in regards to this. And this is on top of the fact that back in December, both Russia and Belarus agreed to move tactical nuclear weapons into Belarus, and nuclear weapons that could be deployed on aircraft, as well as taking Belarusian pilots and flying them into Moscow to train them how to fly, launch, transport, carry nuclear weapons on Soviet-era aircraft that are currently in Belarus. So they're calling an emergency meeting to determine how NATO is going to respond. Has there been a response? Well, you bet your bippy it has been. At midnight UTC, the beginning of September the 2nd of 2023, I believe a couple of B-52s were scrambled out of Italy here. As you will see, they will come onto the map at just 4 minutes after the hour. I believe it is 4 minutes and 11 seconds, which would be a good response time if you rang their bell. And there they are. So this is the B-52. Again, B-52s don't come in ones. B-52s are like fighters. They come in pairs. Always remember, 2 is 1, 1 is none. So you always got to have at least 2 B-52s. They don't fly by themselves. It's 3, 5, 7, 11. Yeah, happy Labor Day. So this B-52, so remember now, we've already gotten the Russians are already on alert. They've already claimed that they've got these guys going out through the woods, and that these guys here are now online. So all of this happens, and then what happens after that? Well, this guy takes off. Now, you also have to remember that here in the Med, we do have the largest aircraft carrier in the world. Gerald R. Ford is floating right here. So we've got that nuclear carrier there, the largest in the world by far. Russia has just any bitty thing. This P-8 out here has been doing laps. This looks like NASCAR in Tennessee.
Right now it is 12:20 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States. We have some more concerning information coming out of Russia. Apparently Russia has deployed their latest nuclear-armed submarine to the Pacific Ocean. This is one of their Bore-class submarines. It's their newest submarine, and it's called the Generalissimo Suvorov. And this is one of 6 Bore-class subs that Russia has. They also have 5 Delta IV class subs, which are their older subs. This is one of their latest submarines, and it can carry the Bulava missile, which is their newest submarine-launched ballistic missile. It can carry up to 6 warheads per missile, and each of these submarines can carry up to 16 missiles. Now, the Bulava missile and the Bore-class sub are still no match for the U.S. Ohio-class submarine, which can carry 24 Trident II D5 missiles. and each Trident missile can carry 12 half-megaton warheads, so they're still much smaller and much less capable than the U.S. Ohio-class subs, but this is still significant when you look at everything that's been happening for the past few weeks. And on Friday, when Russia announced that they were putting their RS-28 Sarmat on combat alert. Okay, the RS-28 Sarmat is a liquid-fueled, super heavy, silo-based ICBM that is designed for a first strike. Okay, it can carry a very heavy payload, so it can carry a lot of warheads and very large warheads, which would be used for a first strike, and it's liquid-fueled. So Russia put in their latest RS-28 Sarmat land-based missiles on combat alert, combat duty, and now we're getting breaking news that they just put their latest submarine on combat duty and they're deploying it to the Pacific. Okay, so very concerning stuff. And
they're going to war with Russia. That's what they're going to do. There will be a hot war between the United States and Russia in the next year. So if you're worried about that, you need to put as much pressure as you possibly can on the Republicans.
All right, so I realize that's days old news, the Tucker interview, but bears repeating, I'm glad that people are finally coming to terms with the situation. And I can only imagine how many thousands of people were chastising us for the longest time for being sensational about this topic. Now one of their gurus is finally talking about it. So hey, I won't hold it against you. Just please get prepared for what is coming. Now we got a litany of information to share with you today. I'm just going to rattle it all off. But before I say that, I got to say, guys, people always talk about when is World War III going to start. There's not going to be any official demarcation until the thing is done. And that is the problem. You don't go into a movie and say that the movie hasn't started yet because you're not at the climax of the movie. Okay, typically the movie starts, about an hour or so goes by, then you approach the climax and the movie ends. Okay, World War III is here. This is World War III. There is an agglomeration of strategic forces from all belligerents in this conflict right now in Eastern Europe as we speak today. So, with that in mind, understand that it wasn't until midway through the Second World War when people it became commonplace to refer to the current conflict that they were in as World War II. In fact, after the Great War, of course, they only had one reference point, the Great War in World War I. In 1919, there was one reference to it possibly being the Second World War. And in 1939, Time magazine came out and said, you know, maybe there might be a Second World War, but it wasn't until midway through, and really more so until the war was over, that it was referred to as World War II. So stop thinking that World War III is going to be demarcated by some announcement or some officiation. It's not. It's here, it's starting now, it's a continuation of wars that have happened in the past, a continuation of the end of the Cold War, I guess you could say, and what started, the events precipitating 2014 and all of that, and what is happening right now with the global shift towards a multipolar world. We are in World War III, so please do your level best to prepare for it. Now, this is what is going on today. Among other things that I'm probably going to forget. There's too many data points. Things are speeding up. It's going way too fast. And I tell you, it is smoky as hell outside. I've never seen the smoke this thick. We're in August now. I've never seen the smoke this thick. These fires are on a scale that I cannot, just every single day I'm amazed at how little people are amazed by what is going on. But people are just going to obliviously be normalcy Norman until the bitter end. Anyways, F-35s are headed to the UK by year's end. What's the hurry? Did you notice that all of these things are happening around the same time? They're all culminating around the end of 2023. What a surprise that 50 F-35s, nuclear-capable F-35s, as well as U.S. nuclear weapons, are going to be in the UK by as early as 2024, which could be anywhere between, the end of this year until the end of next year. It's looking like it's going to be a lot sooner. 50 F-35s, mini nuclear stealth bombers. Okay? Why is it that the Sarmat 2 has been rushed into deployment and put on a high state of alert? This is a nuclear missile that has a longer range. You almost can't intercept it in any way. You could have in the past intercepted Russia's ICBMs during the launch phase, but this one, for whatever reason, I don't know all the technical details, maybe Green Greggs or somebody like that can go into greater depth about this, but these ones are harder to intercept in the launch phase. Once they launch, they separate into multiple re-entry vehicles, 10 nuclear warheads, up to a megaton or so each, plus several dozen decoys. So the idea that you're going to shoot these things down when they're going 25,000 kilometers an hour, no, it's not going to happen. Putin said today, for a reason, and another really veiled nuclear threat, that Russia is invincible and it will not be defeated, and history supports that claim. As much as you think they've almost been defeated, they've come very close. They were knocking on death's door when Germany was at Moscow's border back in the day, but they somehow persevered. Anyways, we have countless doomsday planes, strategic forces, command and control centers, nuclear sniffer planes in the air around the world in irregular amounts right now, today, as these Sarmat 2 systems have been deployed. Now, this in itself is not much different than what Russia has had, all along. Yes, they're more technically capable missile systems, but they've always had 400 active duty ICBMs, if not far more than that, and a whole bunch of tactical nukes at the ready at a moment's notice. Plus, they got them on their Kinzhal hypersonic missiles now. The hypersonics are potentially a game changer. There's a myriad ways that Russia could effectively win a nuclear war against the United States. We're not going to go into that right now. October 4th, remember, we got the nationwide emergency alert test coming. I warned you guys about this last week. Why are all these things coinciding at the same time? Why earlier in the year were all the senators publicly given those satellite phones? Why the nuclear PSAs in New York? It's all starting to make sense, isn't it? The preparation for the public for a radiological event. It's all starting to make sense. EU is training 40,000 more Ukrainian soldiers, delivering them by year's end, as if they're a human resource. When I say delivering them, I don't mean to dehumanize them like that, but that's what Joseph Borrell has said. 40,000 more troops by year's end. Now, I don't normally talk about the tactical stuff, but understand it is the tactical that in many ways shapes what we're going to be discussing strategically. Because if the Ukrainians continue to make operational progress in the south around Robotyno towards Tokmak, then Melitopol, Mariupol, down into Crimea, that's when the likelihood of a nuclear incident ratchets up. And my friends, right now it is sky high. I broke down the other day how the numerous attacks on Moscow are increasing. You can probably sense the intensity is rising in my voice when I give these updates. That's not going to stop us from making our more... it's going to be difficult for people to get into that mode, but we're still going to be making our other types of content, which isn't so shocking, I guess you could say, but it has to be, because that's the nature of the situation that we are currently in, okay? We have Russia pulling missile defense systems from Japan. We are going to show you the exact systems that they're pulling. You can access all this information online, Russian military deployment maps. They will show you where they're pulling the actual S-300s from in Japan. Does this mean, a lot of people think, well, it's because they're running out of weapons. And even the think tanks of the West have now quietly determined that no, Russia is never going to run out of missiles or missile defense systems. They have 1,500 S-300 launchers. No, they're moving them from Japan because they've assessed the threat against NATO to be greater than the East. It's very likely that China has Russia's back in the East. That's why Putin has a plan to go and meet Xi Jinping very soon. They say when Putin and Xi Jinping meet, it's usually because something big is about to go down. Russia, and I've been saying this all along, they're preparing for a war with NATO. That's why they're holding their best forces in reserve. That's why right now they're letting the Ukrainians do this thing in Robotno and they're shelling them with artillery. They got a lot of artillery to burn, but a lot of their forces just aren't really in this fight right now for some reason. And the reason is because they're preparing to go to full-scale war with NATO. Look at the slowly eroding away, the chipping away, the deterioration of the Russian border and the defenses within the country, moving that controlled airspace further towards Moscow. Now Moscow is talking about potentially having to shut down its airspace. I talked about this months ago, how eventually they're going to have to shut down their airspace for good. And that is going to create a massive blow to the economy. And the question is, how much will Putin allow this to go? Putin was quoted as saying last year that he hopes he will never have to wipe Kiev off the map. But, and not in those exact
In Indiana, we found this minimum security state prison located in the middle of a U.S. Army Reserve training base, Camp Atterbury, just south of Indianapolis. These black vans at the prison drew our attention because people in Alaska had told us about dark vans driven by unidentified men in dark black uniforms carrying machine guns, stopping people on the highways. We also found these Indiana Department of Corrections employees dressed in black uniforms who drove one of the dark vans. We found that these state facilities are being built in the middle of U.S. Army property, not just in Indiana, but other states, as people sent us pictures of such facilities in their states, such as this facility at Camp Pinckney in Brighton, Michigan. You see not only the black vans here, but curiously, there are reverse swastikas carved into each end of the roof. We also began to receive information about the Federal Emergency Management Agency known as FEMA, such as these pictures of a FEMA facility in Texas. FEMA operations are divided into 10 regions, as we were told in this letter from FEMA. The American public has been led to believe that FEMA is for disaster relief operations. Yet if we look at military manuals, such as FM 4130, the U.S. Army Civil Affairs and Operations Manual, you'll find the details about who FEMA really is. The government doesn't want this information out because, as you can see, the manual says to destroy it by any means that will prevent its dissemination. The manual says that FEMA is the executive agency that serves as the point of contact for the USG for emergency management within the United States. Under Executive Order 12148 of July 20th, 1979, the President transferred all functions from the Civil Defense, Civil Preparedness agencies under the Department of Defense to FEMA. FEMA develops and implements overall concepts and policy guidance and directs activities for nationwide plans and preparedness for emergencies during peace and war. It also develops plans, systems, and capabilities for protection of the U.S. populace, government, and industry, and for stabilization of the economy in time of emergency. Again, we see from this military manual that FEMA is divided into 10 regions and is the command and control agency for all emergency planning. None of this sounds too sinister until you begin to find out what FEMA has done with 96% of their budget. FEMA has built prisons around the country, and they've also built underground facilities. It actually turns out that they are the key agency to implement a plan known as Operation Garden Plot, the plan to put American citizens in prison camps. Under Executive Order 12919, signed by Bill Clinton on June 3, 1993, presidential authority under a 1950s Defense Production Act was delegated to the Secretaries of Defense, Agriculture, Treasury, and Commerce to seize all civilian property for the government solely by declaring them necessary for national defense. It also gave the Director of FEMA the authority to implement FEMA plans during a national emergency. Most people don't realize that this country has been in a declared state of emergency since the Federal Emergency Act was enacted in 1933, which was the beginning of FEMA, and also gave presidents the authority to issue executive orders. Each president since then has issued an executive order declaring a state of national emergency. Bill Clinton has issued 3 such orders since he took office. Shown here is a FEMA facility in Denton, Texas, where you can see mile after mile of FEMA command and control trailers. These trailers are self-sustaining and contain electrical generators and communications equipment that can be moved out anywhere in the country to start a FEMA operations center. Several military manuals, such as these manuals, ranging from 1985 through 1994, speak of FEMA as the implementing agency for Operation Garden Plot, the plan to put American citizens in prison camps under military control. This 1994 Field Manual for Military Police speaks of Operation Garden Plot as a DoD civil disturbance plan that tells the military what they can and cannot do, and that they will operate under FEMA control.
booming everywhere. The industry can't keep up with the demand. The way the world is now, all of civilization is just burning down. People don't want to go outside. They want to fix up their homes. They want to turn them into fortresses. You know, people are moving out of the city. I guess funny how it's happening. It's the fourth turning. Big part. Historical events. They don't just happen. They're set into motion by great men of generational persona. Each one of these unleashes a turning that lasts about 20 years, more or less. And every 4 turnings is a secular, the length of a human life. And at the end of each, there's a crisis. In this country, the crisis is always war. Revolution, 80 years later, Civil War. 80 years later, World War II. And that's coming up on 80 years now, so. Something's about to happen.
In NATO, we do not care how many Ukrainians die. Not civilians, not women, not children, not soldiers. We do not care. We are, it's become a great football game. You know, we've got our team, they've got our team, rah, rah. We want to get the biggest score and run it up. And, you know, we don't care how many of our players get crippled on the playing field, as long as we win. Now, we are shipping fantastic quantities of weapons, and it's caused the stock of Raytheon, which creates missiles, and Northrop Grumman, which creates aircraft and so forth, and missiles. All of these defense industries have become tremendously bloated with tax dollars. I don't think it's ultimately going to change the outcome. I think that Russia will prevail. The Ukrainians are in a very awkward strategic position in the east, but. If you look at the way that this unfolded, President Putin made a desperate effort